2 weeks retreat at the Tathagata Meditation Centre is over. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to my respect teacher, Sayadaw U Pannathami, who has given me opportunity to teach meditation here. Because of Sayadaw U, I have the chance to teach meditation and help our yogis here. So I would like to express my gratitude to my teacher. Secondly, I would like to express my happiness being with Sayadaws at the Tathagata Meditation Centre. I am very happy staying with Sayadaws. Sayadaw U. I respect him very much. Then Sayadaw Bilin Sayadaw, then Upanyadipa Bhiwansa, then Sayadaw Ujadila. I'm happy staying with Sayadaws. Bilin Sayadaw and myself went back to Burma, assisted Sayadaw U when American yogis organized 2 months retreat. Bilin Sayadaw was very concerned about the retreat at the Tathagata Meditation Centre. He reminded me to send email to Sayadaw U Pannathami. Then Sayadaw U Pannathami also concerned about the retreat. He telephoned Sayadaw U. Then he telephoned me when I was in Australia. So, because of their great effort, I could come here and teach meditation. I am also very grateful to them. I would like to express. I would like to also express my happiness working the committee members of Tathagata Meditation Centre. I noticed them when my first visit to the Tathagata Meditation Centre. The members are very united. They take good care of the Sangha very, very well. So, during my stay here also, they support with the 4 requisites. That's why I would like to express my happiness working with the committee and help us. Forget to express my happiness on behalf of Sangha's happiness for our supporters, the food donors, food requisite donors for the Sangha as well as the yogis. Without their support, we cannot teach, we cannot practice safely and comfortably. Lastly, to our yogis, practitioners, I want to express my happiness. They practice the 4 foundations of mindfulness diligently ardently during that 2 weeks retreat. They patiently listen my Dhamma talk with broken language, English. So I am very happy for their support.
Và
last night, I thought, before I slept, what should I talk tomorrow for the successful remark ceremony? A thought arose in my mind that do not say yet goodbye. But this morning, Sayadaw brought some question papers. So when I look at the papers, these papers become my topic. So later, if I have the time, just a few words. Do not say yet goodbye. 3 questions in the first paper. So please, Sayadaw, would you read?
yes, Sayadaw. I read in English first.
Yes.
So this is the first question. Does purification of the mind only happen at the point of contact before the mind identifies with the object? So that's the first question.
In Vietnamese?
Yeah. Và
if you listen my Dhamma talk carefully, you might remember many times I mentioned present moment, not before, not in the past. We do not have purification of mind before object, present object, not before, not in the past. So, as you know, when you keep your mind or direct your mind to the abdomen, you note rising, falling carefully. Many times I mentioned from the beginning to the end. The noting must synchronize with the object. In this way, you can get pure mind, purification of mind, present moment. Mind should be at present. That's why we say be here in the now. Be here in the now. The second question.
So the second question is, do the stages of insight have to be reached successively, or does the mind stabilize at one stage before reaching the next?
Also, to reach insight knowledge, when the mind fixed on the object, just now why you say purification, your mind is pure and clear. Pure mind, clear mind can see the nature as they really are. What do you call insight? last night I have mentioned, without pure mind, we can't see the changes or nature of as they really are. That's why the consistent purification of mind can reach the insight. That.
Question number 3. What causes the mind to be penetrative? In my experience, it seems to happen spontaneously and not as a result of effort.
This might be your experience. What the Buddha taught, also you have listened many times, because it is so important. Before we practice meditation, it is so important. That's why the Buddha, reminded us the tools to apply for the practice. What he told us first, atapa, putting forth effort. Without putting forth effort, our mind cannot penetrate to the object closely. The Buddha taught us, without effort, we cannot be mindful each and every moment. So we have to understand. Greed and dosa, we have to apply this effort. In Burmese translation we call Kilita ko punwe twe chao. Kim Piao se nine no tamabatan lona wariya. That means in order to get rid of greed and anger, in order to dry up defilements, we must use strenuous effort.
Và nếu mà
put forth effort in order to dry up defilements, in order to get rid of defilements completely, not for a moment, completely, we have to use the samabhadana lona wariya, the excessive effort. Making effort for the non-arising of unwholesome, which has not arising. Unwholesome, which has not arising in our mind. Then we have to make effort to to abandon the unwholesome which has rising in our mind.
Và làm thế nào?
We are unenlightened ones. We are worldlings. Puthojana. We worldlings do both good and bad. We have done something bad deeds in the past. We also have done good deeds in the past. We are still doing them. Then in future we also might have done good and bad. So for the unwholesome deeds, when we practice meditation, when we are noting the present object rising and falling, so on, sometimes a thought may arise in our mind. unwholesome thoughts. Sometimes, while we have done something akusala, unwholesome deeds in the past, would arise in the mind. So if we do not note it closely, they would arise. So the Buddha taught, use the effort not to arise the unwholesome deeds which we have done in the past. Trying to recall your practice. Once you forget your mindfulness, the unwholesome thought mostly just come or leaks in your mind. Just come in your mind. That's why you say, I have the fantasy, this and that. Once you forget your mindfulness, the unwholesome thoughts, unwise thoughts, would appear in the mind so quickly. So if you make effort, strong effort, the unwholesome thoughts, unwise thoughts, do not have the chance to appear in your mind. That's why this is the Buddha's meant, putting forth effort. So if you are able to put forth effort, there is no chance to come the new unwholesome thoughts. But I just mention new unwholesome thought. Literally, the unwholesome state, unwholesome thought which has not rising, no chance to rise. The unwholesome state which has rising doesn't have the chance to appear in the mind. I think you would understand clearly. So this is a samabdana lola wariya. In Pali, no banana. I mean, trying to tell you in accordance with this Pali stanza, Pali the sentence. No banana, upanana, akusalana, no padaya, vayamo. Upanana, akusalana, no padaya, vayamo. The same meaning just now I mentioned. Now, for the wholesome deed, we have done wholesome deeds in the past. We are still doing. As we are practitioner, as we understand the teachings of the Buddha, in future also we will try to develop the wholesome deeds. Wholesome deeds. While we are noting the rising, falling, so on, if we could note the present object closely, what I said, you may remember, confidence would arise, saddha, faith would arise. Then, even you might think, while you are noting, because you are so grateful to the teachings, I will support the sasana, this and that, such a devotion would arise. So, this is Upanana Kusalana Priyo Bhavaya Vayamo. The wholesome deed which has not arising to appear in the mind. According to our yogi's experience, I will try to explain so that you might understand well. At the beginning of the practice, you try to keep your mind on the abdomen. Why do you keep your mind on the abdomen? Because, according to the instruction, you want to note the rising, falling closely. So when you keep your mind on the abdomen, you make effort. You make effort. So you could note the rising, falling from the beginning to the end closely. So what I said in my talk, if you go to note a single of the rising from the beginning to the end, you accumulate vipassana meritorious deed. Before that, you haven't got vipassana meritorious deed. But when you note the rising falling closely, you accumulate vipassana meritorious deed. So you must develop this meritorious deed. How do you develop this meritorious deed? Noting it closely again and again whenever it appears. So you develop. You do not forget about it. You try to remember it. You do not ignore it. You try to know it every time. So in this way, the wholesome deed is being developed by your mindfulness. The Buddha was very concerned about the effort, viriya, in order to remove the greed and covetousness. You might remember in my talk, arambata, nikamata, yonzata, Buddha sasana, what the initial effort, then successive effort, then progressive effort. These are efforts. Without putting these efforts, we cannot. Our mind cannot penetrate into an object. I think that's enough, no? That's enough. Just a main point. If you want to have a Pali translation in English, please ask the Tathagata Meditation Centre. Yes. Another one, the mind, this also already mentioned. Yeah. The same. Sometimes we use Jeta, sometimes we use Vijnana, sometimes we use Mana. Actually, it's the same consciousness.
Thì cái câu hỏi này là câu hỏi là đôi lúc sư
Bhikkhu Kitara Burmese temporary Bhikkhu Dr. Chiso. Also, he wrote in Burmese. I also like to talk in Burmese. So I don't know what to say. Yeah, please read.
Actually, he wrote in English as well, so I'm going to read his English,
yes.
Not Burmese. Yeah. He said, may I respectfully ask to Sayadaw the following question. There are 3 questions. So question 1, during the meditation practice, I noticed 2 different kind of mind, such as A, noting mind, and in some Burmese, B, conscious mind. Could you please explain about the different kind of mind and their role in meditation practice?
I will say first in Burmese, the poem written by our late, most venerable Master Sayadaw. I will try my best to understand our yogis clearly, but I'm not sure. Because when you ask a question, I have to answer correctly. In the Dhamma talk, I may make something mistake. It doesn't matter because I'm talking alone. When you ask, I have to be very careful using the words as well, But I will try according to our practice. So what I understand, I have to give the example rising falling always, because this is our favorite. If you understand any rising and falling, you understand everything. That's why it is so important. So you know the rising falling. When you know the rising falling, which notes the rising falling? The mind. The mind. When you say you note, the mind remember or recognize it is rising, it is falling. This is a quality of the mind, the characteristic of the mind. Of the mind. So I have to think first, because just now I say I will recite first in Burmese. Ayong ti do thabo shi ti. Kaung song Allah shi twa dat ti. Shi sai nin sat. Shi sai nin sat. Tat tat phit ti. Sai taya ti nya myat yogi. So we are working with the mind. When we work with the mind, we try to know, the mind try to know it is rising, it is falling, it is rising, it is falling. Have you experienced that? Yes, you have experienced, because you note. So you mean you are noting the rising, falling closely. Then another mind, you notice. Is it right? Another mind, something watching the noted mind. Is it? So you notice the mind is process, that the characteristic is knowing or remember the things. Remember the things. This is a characteristic of the mind. Then when you are noting the rising, falling, you may notice when the mindfulness is not good enough yet, you would not remember when you are thinking immediately. So here I will say your mindfulness is very good. Then you could note the rising, falling closely. You know every rising, every falling, noting rising, falling, rising, falling. Suddenly your mind goes off. When your mind goes off, what happened? Maybe you are thinking, you are wondering, you are imagining. So when you are thinking, your strong mindfulness will catch it, then note thinking, thinking, thinking. Then thinking disappeared. Or you know thinking. Then come back to the rising and falling. Suddenly the mind goes another mind state, maybe wondering, maybe imagining, maybe thinking about happiness, maybe thinking about unhappiness. So different kinds of mind states. That when they appear, the mind notes immediately. When the seeing object arises, the mind notes seeing. When the hearing object appears, the mind notes hearing. So you noticed, when you are noting the process of noting, this is called Kaung Song Allah Shi Twa Dat Ti. The mind notes first. The mind leads other things. So as a leader, have to work. The leader should not be lazy. Leader always lead the group or association. Here the mind, why you say in the Dhammavada, Mano Bobengama Dhamma, Mano Siddha Mano Maya, very popular stanza. The mind leads. So when we practice meditation, we know the rising, falling. So whatever arises in the mind and body, the mind just quickly notes. Quickly notes. Then you know the process of the mind. Not the mind is not continuous. Appeared one another. What should I say? The successive of mind. Successive of mind. There, when you note one thing, it disappears. The noting mind also disappears. Noting mind, noting mind, noting the. What I say, when you know the rising, falling, you notice rising disappeared. the noting also disappears. Then another arises, the mind note rising. This object, the matter, disappeared, the noting also disappeared. In this way, when the your mindfulness is very good, you could notice the mind and matter rises and disappear. Then another the matter and mind rises and disappear. Rises and disappear. You could notice clearly. So that's why I think you could see why I note the rising, falling closely, something like as if my mind watching the noted mind. So you could see the process of your mind, I would say. So when a yogi is very mindful, they can experience, this is their experience. Oh, the Buddha also said, in this way, this kind of yogi would have much more devotion, would have confidence. Oh, what the Buddha taught is true. I have seen myself. I talk to.
A question number 2. How can we note or watch the objects without proper naming and labeling when we see the faster process of motion in the middle of the 1 hour meditation period?
Please say again.
I'll read again. I don't understand it myself. Sorry.
Please give me. I think he right permits. When the question is why a yogi is noting mindfully and closely to the object, then the object is so rapid, so cannot label it, because the object is so quick and so fast. For example, the rising falling movement. So what should do? So we always say, when you are noting the object of the rising and falling, according to your mindfulness, you might experience that the movement is very fast, very quick. You cannot follow the movement closely. So what should do? We always say, trying to note as much as you can. If you could not follow the movement, just let it be. If you try to follow the movement until you catch it, what you say from the beginning to the end, you might be very tired. You might be very tired. That's why note as much as you can follow. Or you just observe it, watch it. You don't need to label rising, falling. I also sometimes told the yogis, like you look at people from your veranda, when there are not many people, you can count. You also know who and who. You can say, when there are so many people crowded, you cannot count, because so many people, you just watch. You just look at. Here also, when you see the rising falling movement is very fast, you can follow, you can note as much as you can. If you cannot keep the name or label, just let be. Just leave behind. Or you just watch. Seeing, or knowing, you just note it. That's all.
Accident, by car accident, or by extreme disease like a heart attack or a stroke, or if one is suffering from extreme pain, and because of this extreme pain and because of extreme illness, if one is worrying too much, if one is suffering, and if someone who is worrying so much, who is in great fear, how should one be prepared, or how should one face in order to be able to die peacefully, or in order to die with good mindfulness or consciousness? How should one prepare oneself?
We translate. Cái câu hỏi là nếu mà một người gặp
ချိန်၌ဝိပဿနာရှုနေခြင်းသို့မဟုတ်တရားဓမ္မကက်ဆက်နားထောင်နေခြင်းသို့မဟုတ်ဗုဒ္ဓဂုဏ်တော်များစိတ်မှရွတ်ဆိုပွားများနေခြင်းသို့မဟုတ်မိမိပြုလုပ်ခဲ့ဘူးသောကောင်းမှုများကိုပြန်လည်အောက်မေ့ခြင်းအခြားဘာသာရေးနည်းရှိပါကဖြေကြားပေးပါရန်တဲ့ယူသေးစွာလျှောက်ထားပါသေးတယ်
When one is lying on a deathbed, by contemplating on one's wholesome deeds, by being mindful, by contemplating on one's deeds that one has performed previously, by listening to the Dhamma talks, tapes, or by chanting, or are there any other means for one to prepare oneself when one is lying on one's deathbed?
So
was that a question or an answer?
question လောက်ရမှာလားတဲ့တရားထုတ်ရမှာလားတရားနာရမှာလား It depends. In Burma, most of the people are Buddhist. When a person is to terminate, they invite monks and listen chanting and doing dhamma. So in this way they can be mindful, they can die peacefully. As I live outside Burma, I have helped quite a number of people. Some were not Buddhist, some were not practitioners, some were practitioners and Buddhist. So for Buddhists, they know what to do. When they are sick, they listen, Prayada chanting, they invite the monks, do dana, then listen, Prayada chanting. Their families remind them what they have done, good deeds. So we should practice meditation earlier, as I taught in my topic. If a person who practiced meditation, when this person was sick, we could remind easily to be mindful. If a person doesn't practice meditation, when it's going to terminate, very difficult. Even though we remind to be mindful, they could not be mindful because they suffered. They might get angry. Tell you my experience, a few experiences. I have many experiences. When I was in Blue Mountain in Australia, one day I was invited by a Burmese doctor, saying that her friend who was going to terminate because of the cancer, he went to many places. He also came to America for the treatment, in Europe countries, in England. Eventually he went back to Australia. So on his deathbed, he wanted to see a monk who he knew, but that monk went away. He could not be his present. That's why the Burmese daughter, if I could help, just to see him, she didn't mention anything, just to go to see him. That's all, because he wanted to see a monk, the monk who he knew. So I accepted. I went to see him. Actually, he was not a Buddhist. He hosted his house for 1 or 2 nights for that monk. That's why he wanted to see him. So I went to see him. I didn't keep quiet because as I understand the teachings of the Buddha, at least he should have something benefit. So I told him, I asked his health, whether or not he could live comfortably. Then I told him I wanted to do chanting for him. So he agreed, yes. So I chanted Metta Sutta. I also just chanted Buddhaṃ Saranam Gacchāmi, Dhammam Saranam Gacchāmi, Sangham Saranam Gacchāmi with translation. Then just 5 precepts I just recited. I didn't ask him to follow. So that at least he could hear, this is the teachings of the Buddha. This is my intention. Then I told him, if he would accept, I would like to teach meditation a bit. So he also agreed. I am very happy with him. So I told him, just 2 things. Do note rising, falling. That's all. Because he could not note everything. Do note rising, falling. I told him. Then I stayed with him for a few minutes, about 10-15 minutes. Then I told him, tomorrow I will come and see you. I told him I went back. The next day, I went to see him again. I asked about his health, whether or not he would stay comfortably. Then I asked him, could you note the rising, falling? He said yes. So I told him, note again rising, falling. Only rising, falling. So he looked happy, staying with me. His wife also looked happy. So next day, I told him again, I would come tomorrow. But before lunch, I got a message. He died. Then the lady requested me for the cremation. I told her I have to go somewhere for the retreat. I could not come back for 1 week. The lady said, I will be waiting for you. The body will be kept at the hospital. She waited me until I come back. Then I led the ceremony. The lady said how he died. He died peacefully. She said, his wife said. So what I noticed, he died but peacefully. I believe he might have some benefits peacefully. Then another lady, she also got a cancer about in her 30s. She practiced with me for 2 weeks. Then later whenever I met her, I encouraged her to practice. But she just looked, smiled, she didn't practice. Then later when I went back again, she was in the hospital. She got coma. I was invited and go and chant. I do chanting, but the memory come back. Everybody surprised. Then I reminded her what she had done, good deeds. She offered food to the Sangha, I saw, also donated the requisites. I reminded her to remember what she had done, meritorious deeds. Also, I reminded her to be mindful what she practiced, meditation. but I saw she also died, but peacefully. So as we are meditation teacher, if we know, we like to encourage patients to be mindful, to practice meditation, at least they would have parami. So depending on the patients, this patient can accept the chanting, just play the chanting, then remind what they have done good deeds. At least, even though they do not offer food or requisites to the Sangha, with their love, they also help other people, not to the monks, other people they help. This also is a good deeds. Good deeds remind, at least when they realize, they might be happy. So while you ask, you can do all of these things according to the condition. Now I want to say at the beginning of discussion, do not say yet. What?
Goodbye.
Goodbye. That means you must go ahead until you reach to where? Nibbana, you understand very well. I don't need to. Because the Buddha encouraged us, taught us, Jayata Bhikkhave Mapamadatta. Practice. Practice. Don't forget on the 5 aggregates. Be mindful on the 5 aggregates. Jayata, practice. Jayata Bhikkhave Mapamadatta. Ma Vipati Sari no Ahuvata. After all, you would regret. That's why don't forget, practice diligently, ardently, until you attain enlightenment. As the Buddha taught, if we understand, don't say yet. You continue the what?